Evolphin, basically a play on dolphin and evolution.
Oh, okay. And I guess like we ran into, like, were you here last year too?
Yeah, we've been here since I think 2012.
Oh, okay.
Recently, yeah.
But then your booth kind of changed colors because I see a lot of orange.
Oh yeah, the booth has evolved. So this year it's much more brighter.
I see. Cool. And then everyone's awake still. And it's like the last day. So yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the booth has changed. The product has changed.
Okay.
We're very positive. It's been great fun.
Cool.
It's been a fun event.
I guess first off, like, what is this? Like, asset management?
So we're basically a media asset management solution.
Okay.
But we're MAM reimagined. So essentially in the MAM landscape, people have focused on primarily videos.
Okay.
But what we are finding is with the modern creative workflows, people don't just work with videos. They have Photoshop files, they have still images, audio. So there are multiple types of files and assets that come together.
Okay.
When you see that cool video on YouTube, there may be like 20 people working on it with different tools, different creative applications, 3D tools. So we're the only solution that covers the range of creative experiences in one MAM.
Interesting.
Without us, you would have to buy a DAM, MAM, a bunch of different solutions and stitch them together.
Okay, so I guess like, is this a subscription-based service, or do you buy the software and then you can then manage your own library, or how does this work?
Both the options are there. So you could do an on-premise setup where you own the software, or you could subscribe to our cloud service and we can host it on the cloud, or you could do a hybrid where some part of the software is on the cloud, but your SAN with your high-res footage is on-prem. So that's another differentiator for us, that we can work with all the models, cloud, on-prem, hybrid.
Okay, so let's just say, take a less hypothetical scenario, a small studio of like Janet and myself. We do work, I primarily work with still, Janet primarily works with video, and so we've got those kinds of assets, but there are usually only like two, maybe two up to four of us that might need to look at this database. Can you give me an idea of like implementation, what makes sense and what is cost effective, or?
Yeah, so if you're like just 2 or 4 people, you might just want to go to a cloud solution.
Okay.
And based on how much data you are generating, how many videos or images you are repurposing and pushing out or publishing, you might be a candidate for a small plan, which could be just like 250 gigabyte of cloud storage.
Okay.
And,
but 250, that sound, let's also put this in perspective too. We shoot a fair bit of raw footage, that kind of thing for video. There's about close to a terabyte a day sometimes.
Sure.
What do we?
But the key thing to remember is that your raw footage, your videos, they will typically not be on the cloud. So you will still have a network storage.
Okay.
Where you would put your high-res videos. Okay,
so we have basically a proxy for referencing. Okay.
Yeah, so the proxies would go onto the cloud, and the proxy could be 2 to 5% of your videos.
Okay. And I guess does your software, let's say the cloud solution, is there automatic transcoding to create okay, I see the nod. So
yes, so that's a key part of these workflows.
Okay.
If the transcoding is manual, that's too painful for average users.
Right.
So with us, there's an ingest process.
Okay.
When you bring your shoot videos, for example, from this camera, if you bring a terabyte of clips, you can just throw it into our software. Literally drag and drop the camera card folder.
Okay.
And we can then route it to the transcoding layer.
Okay.
Generate proxies, store the proxies in the right location, and most importantly, attach metadata to these proxies. Okay. So now you have a way of finding these clips.
Okay. So I guess what kind of file formats can I drag and drop? So I'm working with a compressed format here. So XAVC, I think XAVC, so that's no problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sony XT-Cam produce any format that this camera can produce, Panasonic, all of them can be handled.
And then what about what if I'm dealing with R3D or so R3D you can drop in and automatically transcode?
Exactly. That actually is a big part of the workflow. Because historically people have struggled with the RED files, 4K, 8K.
Yes.
So we can automate that entire process. Where the RED files can get transported and the proxies basically get pushed out the same way.
But is it transcoding now happening locally, or is it happening through the cloud?
The transcoding would typically happen locally because the files are going to be so large that to upload a terabyte to the cloud would be too slow. Okay. So there would be a hardware transcoding layer on premise.
But at the same time, the expectation for a media asset management solution is that we index everything as opposed to just what is cut. So that means that now we are also basically bare de-interpolating all of our footage. Is that correct? Like, and that's why we have to bare de-interpolate in order to generate, like our transcoded footage all the time. Like, I mean, like, does that, for a typical user, does that now add a lot of time to that workflow, or is there a?
So no. So basically, one of the key things that a MAM like us does is even before the transcoding finishes, we want to index the original files.
Okay.
Right. So you might have the R3D or the other files already indexed.
Okay.
And so you have it accessible in the MAM with the metadata even before the transcoding finishes. So if you want to search and find these footages, R3D or others, you can do that, and then you can still start working on it with your editing suite even before that transcoding finishes.
Okay. Can you give me like a quick demonstration of maybe just that process? Like, do you have it set up somewhere? Or?
Yeah, let's go through that.
Cool.
So basically, this is our software.
Okay.
And let's say I wanted to transcode something, bring in some videos, and let me just hide this panel. And my goal was to bring it into this Newsnet Global channel. That's the project that I'm working with.
Okay.
So the process is pretty simple. I will find the videos, and let's say this is a video, this is our NAB video. I could just drag that video.
And I guess just, I guess you work with a lot of different formats, but just for reference, what format was that video?
So this video was a M4V.
Okay.
But we are completely agnostic to that. So
Okay.
you could be throwing a R3D file. I just had one file. You could be throwing thousands file.
Okay.
At it, doesn't matter. Once you put in the drag and drop, you will see a metadata form show up. So I'm asking here for, I need to enter a brand, category, a project, and an episode shoot.
Okay.
And all of these metadata fields, these are all customizable. And what these metadata fields are doing is, this is going to drive the searching.
Okay.
So right at the ingest point, we're trying to capture all the key pieces of metadata.
Okay.
Right? So once you hit check-in, this is going to send this to our transcoding layer. And since transcoding is going to take a bit of time, so I'm just going to quickly explain how that process is going to go through. So this is the transcoding step. So once I drag and drop from my workstation, there is an ingest server that's running on the background.
Yep.
That's going to examine all the files that I'm sending to it. This could be a red file, MXF file, doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And it's going to say, okay, so this is a large high-res file. I need to send this through this transcoding workflow.
Okay.
So it can make decisions on which transcoding workflow to send.
Okay.
So if it's an MXF file, MXF container, it might send it to a specific workflow. If it's a red file, then there is a different workflow. So there are a number of workflows that have been optimized for different kinds of formats.
Okay.
And that is critical because you can't use the same workflow for everything.
Absolutely.
There are different profiles for these files. So let's say once the transcoder gets going, it's going to take some time to generate the proxies.
Okay.
But in the meantime, this ingest server also talks to our MAM server.
Okay.
Right? So even though you don't see a pathway, but before it goes to transcoding, the two talk.
Yep.
And the ingest server is going to supply the core metadata that I was showing you, basically all these fields. So all the fields that we are seeing here will be sent to the MAM server.
Okay.
And it would have the files indexed. Now, once the files are indexed, if I go into one of the folder here and look at the videos, so you would see an icon show up here. So this little icon, that indicates the path on the SAN or NAS to these videos, the original videos. So if I click on this, this is taking me to the original file.
Okay.
So this is where the mid-res versions, the original native files are going to be stored.
Okay.
But if you look at the asset management system, it has a preview of the file. So if I preview the file, I can see it right here. and the reason is the low-res proxy got stored in the MAM.
Okay.
And this MAM server could be sitting on the cloud.
Okay.
So if I'm a remote editor, I could be accessing this interface and I am looking at the proxies in here, and I can then start working with them in my editing suite. My editing suite could be like Adobe Premiere, so I could just jump into Premiere.
Yep.
And I have access to the exact same footage, which is there in my MAM.
Okay.
It's right in my tool, and I can say, okay, I want to work with these files, select these files, and click on Make Link, and that's going to place the links inside my Premiere project, and I can then drag and drop and start doing my editing workflows.
Now, like I said, this workflow looks very convenient if I'm using Adobe Premiere, but what if I'm not using Adobe Premiere?
So it doesn't matter if you're not using Adobe Premiere, then it's very simple. You can use our application, right?
Okay.
So you could be using another tool. You just do the same thing. You select the footage,
Okay.
and you can drag and drop and place it in another tool. This could be Final Cut Pro, and I could go and drag and drop the assets in Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
So we're
But-
agnostic to
But
the app.
again, like, say, what if it's like DaVinci Resolve or something like that? There seems to be like no drag and drop in Resolve. Like, how do I deal with that?
Okay, so if they don't support any drag and drop,
Yes.
then they at least support like an import function, so you can go and place links, just like browsing a file system.
Right, but I mean, like, that means I have to now go manually reference the file.
Yeah, so if it doesn't support drag and drop, then you would have to manually go and browse the
Okay.
file system, and that's like going backwards in the sense
Right.
that you're not using the metadata to find, but
Yeah.
at the very least you can search with metadata.
Okay.
So for example, I was looking for a clip that's called climbing something, so I can just type climbing, and I find my climbing the Alps clip, right?
Okay.
And I can click on this button, it'll open up the folder.
All right.
So it saves me tons of time, because otherwise what would I do? I would have to go through this like 10 deep folder structure to locate my clip. So
Again,
my
yeah.
clip is right here, and I can go into DaVinci and I have the path.
I guess like it was a couple days ago now. I think we were chatting about this too. About I guess like like I think Maxon and their Cinema 4D product, like
Right.
they have like I mean I don't believe that normal drag and drop is capable. That
Cinema 4D?
it's not drag and drop, but you guys have somehow
we
worked
have a
with it.
plugin inside Cinema
Okay.
4D, just like we have a Premiere plugin.
Okay.
We
How
have-
did those plugins come about though? Like, did
so-
you guys develop them? Did
Yeah.
what about the or like is it possible that other companies can have that plugin developed for their workflow? Or
That's a great point. So we have basically a framework for creating these plugins.
yes.
So we spent a lot of time hiding all the details around writing these plugins
Okay.
into our framework.
Okay.
So as a plugin writer,
Okay.
you just need few APIs, maybe a handful of
Okay.
REST APIs that you need to call
Okay.
to develop the plugin.
Now, I guess, are you releasing these APIs then to different software manufacturers?
Yeah, so we have a SDK program.
Oh, okay.
Software development kit that partners can basically get.
Okay.
And that gives you access to all these APIs. So if you want to write a plugin into DaVinci or some other tool, you could.
And then what does it take to be a partner?
You basically sign up with our partner
Okay.
team.
Is it a qualification process? Do you have to have like a, like a certain educational background
Yeah,
or a certain
absolutely.
accent, like one of these guys, or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
certain accent? Okay.
Because we want to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time. And if you're doing a technical integration like a plugin,
Okay.
then you really need to understand the creative workflows. You need
Okay.
to have basic programming language understanding. Like if you're doing Cinema 4D, you need to know how to use Python. If you're doing Autodesk Maya, same thing, Python or C++.
Right.
So you have to have a programming background before you can.
Okay. And I guess like I guess like that's kind of a weird scenario. Like what if it's like an obscure piece of software and we can't, like I'm trying to think of a good example for this, but I can't. I mean, like say that like you had a project that was like locked into software that is not being really well supported right now. Like I mean, is it possible? Like, do we need also source code of the software we're using?
No.
So it isn't possible just to have a plugin as long as you understand the plugin
Yeah,
protocol.
so most
Okay.
of the creative apps, they offer a way for an extension to be written to them.
Okay.
So an extension is basically just a drop down. So for example, inside Photoshop or inside, you have this Evolphin Zoom extension.
Okay.
Pretty much every creative app has some way of plugging in an extension. Now what that extension can or cannot do, that's dictated by the API that that creative tool basically specifies.
Okay.
So some will allow you to examine the links inside a document.
Right.
Like in a Cinema 4D, you might be linking to texture files and you can pull that out.
Okay.
But some of them are limited and they would not give you access to that. They store the links and references into their internal database.
Okay.
So then what the plugin can do could be limited, but at least the basic searching, I think that's something that could be supported anywhere.
Okay.
As long as that plugin allows you to talk remotely through HTTP with support.
I guess like back to the MAM itself now. Like, does it have capability of generating metadata on its own, like figuring out what is inside the footage?
Oh yeah,
or-
absolutely. So when you look at any asset in here, so let's pick up this asset and look at the metadata in here. So there's tons of metadata that was automatically extracted. So if I just show you the metadata that was automatically extracted, let's go to, so these are some of the fields like city, footage, or source, Facebook campaign. So many of these fields were already part of the files, and on all the file properties, the color, alpha channel present or not, These
Right.
are extracted out of the file.
Right.
There
But,
could be chapter markers that are embedded inside the file, so we
Right.
could also pull that.
but I mean, like, I think I was like speaking to actually another filmmaker recently. Like, I hate to mention this now in video, but like someone else had found also I guess like an asset management system that ties in with like Google Inside Search technology or something like that to actually identify what was shot, though.
Right.
Like, is there any kind of integration like that with your software? Oh, there is.
We haven't actually had a customer deployed
Oh.
using a semantic analysis tool, but the framework that we have for indexing,
Okay.
this is an open framework. So we can hook up with image recognition or a video, basically like a computer vision or a video recognition software.
So I mean, like, but I mean, you would have to like, as the user would have to provide the software. Is
Yeah.
there no integration into
So
some?
we would have to integrate with those APIs.
Okay.
For instance, would be, for example, Microsoft has a Vision API.
Oh, okay.
So we could send it a path to a proxy,
Okay.
and we don't even need to upload the actual file. Path to a proxy to Microsoft Vision API,
Okay.
and it will basically then go and do its analysis,
Okay.
and it would return some semantics metadata, scene recognition or object recognition.
Oh.
And
Okay,
we
so-
would then index that in our system.
So I guess like what would that cost, or how long does that take, or how difficult is that to integrate? Then that sounds like a valuable tool.
Yeah, the
that
integration
should
is
always-
the easy part. It's a
Really?
pretty simple API.
Oh.
All we have to do is make a simple web request,
Okay.
giving it a path to a proxy
Okay.
that Microsoft can find on a web URL somewhere,
Okay.
and then it sends a response. So the response is not immediate, so it will basically call us back maybe after like 10 minutes or half an hour, depending upon how long it takes
Right.
for the video to transcribe and generate that. And then it will send us the metadata in a standard XML.
Okay.
And we can parse that XML. So it could take probably for us a couple of days for us to integrate with a specific Vision API. And there are many companies out there. So like you said, Google, IBM has IBM Watson Vision API. So we could do integration pretty quickly.
Okay.
In terms of cost,
Yeah.
the cost would be borne by the customer, as in if you have 10,000 videos that you want to do analysis on.
Right.
So Microsoft might offer a service where 3 videos a day are free,
Yeah.
but after that you have to pay.
Right.
So you would basically subscribe to that service and set up the account information in our system, so we can then automatically log in into that account, do the semantic analysis, and then you would get a bill from the cloud provider that's providing that Vision API.
Interesting. Okay. Cool.
Now this is one way of doing it.
Yeah.
The other is you have an on-prem solution that does the recognition.
Oh, okay. I did not. So, though I didn't realize that those solutions were even available.
Yeah. So in
Okay.
fact, yesterday there
Yes.
was a company that showed up at our booth, and they want to partner with us for
Okay.
on-premise recognition.
Oh.
And so you would basically then buy the software, install it. The challenge with on-prem is the compute power
Yeah.
is going to be limited.
Right.
And Google and Microsoft, they have the benefit of improving their algorithms
Yes.
with millions of people trying to hit their Vision API.
Right.
So yeah, I would probably go to one of these big ones
Right.
and use their APIs.
Okay. Well, I guess like what's the benefit of doing it locally though? Like just lower,
It's
like no
basically
transfer
cost.
cost.
You
Okay.
wouldn't have to pay per analysis for every video.
I see.
You would pay for the software on-prem
Okay.
once, and then it's right there.
Okay.
And the other is also the fact that performance.
Okay.
You're not uploading a video to the cloud for
Yes.
somebody to do the analysis. It could be working off the videos that are sitting inside a MAM. So it could save you time to upload.
Can you share the name of the company that approached you guys yesterday?
So I actually have their business card.
Okay.
They are supposed to come here for a demo in 15-20 minutes.
Okay.
He said at 10:30 he would be here. Mislav, the name of his company escapes me, but
Okay.
yeah, we're going to be talking about if there's a potential partnership here.
Okay, sounds great. I guess like, again, like back to our small studio example, like I mean, like I do see the value obviously of asset management. Actually, well, maybe maybe you can kind of like spell it out for us. Like like say I'm not losing our assets and footage right now, but like
Yeah.
what can I do with an asset management system? Like, can I make more money with it? Like, what happens?
So the first benefit is if you are a small shop and let's say you have a nice way of organizing your content.
Yes.
You have beautifully designed folder structure,
Yeah.
so everybody knows where to go.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you're not going to basically be worried about searching.
Yes.
But there are a couple of other considerations, right? Like your footage and your data.
Yes.
Do you want to protect that? Do you want
Protect
to
it in what
protect
way?
it as in if let's say a volume crashes,
Okay.
right, and you lose 2 years of footage.
Yep.
Now, how costly is that to you?
Okay.
It might be that you say, hey, I shoot for a new project every time, and I don't care about the old footages. But if that's not the case, if you want to repurpose these footages or the projects that you've been working on,
Yes.
right, then it's important to have a MAM solution offer you data protection.
Okay.
So one of the things that we can do for you is, if you use our cloud solution, it's basically a highly available cloud solution, so you can have the data replicated in multiple regions or multiple servers. So if something goes wrong, like your hard disk crashes on-prem, you're not basically going to lose your data, right? So
Okay.
that's basically one big benefit. The other benefit is the collaboration aspect. So when you are collaborating with colleagues, or you might be working with an agency or with an external customer, right?
Yep.
And you need to seek approvals. So one of the things that we have inside Premiere is the ability to collaborate. So for example, you go into the export tab,
Okay.
and you are ready to export your video. So you use a Adobe Media Encoder preset and you hit export.
Yeah.
It's going to export this video, and when you click on add to Lightbox, it's going to send it to a web or cloud service
Okay.
that we provide. And using that service, you could have your producers come in here and they would see the same video that
Okay.
you produced, and they could basically then comment on it. So they could pause the video and add a comment in here,
Okay.
change this, whatever. And
Again,
these
this
comments would
this
go
is
back.
not limited to Adobe Premiere only though,
No.
right?
So
Like I mean,
this
like you
works-
just anywhere you export. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So this could work with Photoshop, exact same interface.
Right.
Is there in Adobe Photoshop? You can go and browse and do the same thing there.
Okay.
So video collaboration could be a big deal for small shops.
Cool. Oh, I mean, again, what about like, and I'm trying to like lead you on here, but like, what about monetizing the content that you've shot? Like, someone is looking for something that happened that you were not specifically hired to go shoot, but suddenly, like, like someone will come back and ask you, oh, do you have, some kind of like static, tripoded landscape footage of, this state or this province or something like that?
Oh, okay,
Is
yeah,
there-
exactly. So if you are working on creative projects, and over time you would collect a lot of footages or stills or even exported videos. So you want to be able to quickly find something for someone.
Yes.
So you can have a couple of options. You can basically perform a search directly in this interface.
Yeah.
And this is more for the creatives. But what would be easier is to be able to go to a web client, something like, let's go in here. So you could go into a web client and have your customers, you could create a marketplace or like a portal for them to come in.
Okay.
And they could self-serve, they could basically find the elements that they are interested in. And you could set up rules that when they download, there's a shopping cart experience.
Yes.
And they would have to buy the footage. So you could set up like a digital marketplace.
Oh,
using
okay.
A portal software like this.
Okay. And then, I mean, like, is this your portal software or who's?
Yeah, this is our portal software.
Oh, okay. So that means like, so technically we could contact you to figure out how to set it up
Yeah,
using.
exactly. So if you wanted
okay.
that shopping cart experience where people go and download assets and you want to track what they downloaded, we can set that up.
Okay.
So you could then build them.
I guess like, a couple questions about like cost and who actually is the customer. Like say that, again, a hypothetical industrial customer you have wants a custom, like library of stock footage and stock photography. Like, do we manage the library, or does the client need an installation or a license of Evolphin software
I
to
think
manage?
with a lot of the smaller producers, basically smaller content shop, we often see the end customer
Yes.
pay for that license.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yes, we have a number of scenarios like that where a larger company,
Yes.
they want a librarian function to be created for them.
Okay.
So whoever they are working with, the content creators, they will have their own areas within which they will upload their content and put the stuff.
Right.
All the content is basically then there for the larger company to access.
Okay.
So that's one model. The other model is if you're working with lots of other customers, you could set up a digital marketplace of your own.
Okay.
And then you could basically sell that to anyone as long as you have the rights to do that.
Okay. I guess like hypothetically, and again, like, let's just talk about, the small shop, like, a shop like ours. How much would a license like this cost, like either for cloud install or for a local install?
So for a cloud license, it might be, so I'm not the sales guy, but maybe a couple of $1,000
Okay.
a year.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of $1,000 a month.
Oh, okay.
$1,000 based on how much storage is needed.
Okay.
Right.
So
storage is
it's
the
mostly the
biggest-
storage.
It's mostly the storage.
costs. Okay.
And you can also offset the cost of storage by archiving more often.
Yeah.
So if you decide to have a policy where only 25% of the content is on online live storage,
Yeah.
and 75% goes to archive like S3, then you could offset your cost significantly.
Okay.
And yeah.
But say like, what if I don't need? Is there a scenario where I could possibly not need any cloud storage? So say like I manage all of my own storage, but I just need the content, the asset management system. Like how much?
Index?
Like can I just license the
Yes.
asset management
So
system?
that would probably be the cheapest option.
Okay.
If you can manage your own storage,
Yes.
Either online or on-premise or cloud,
Yes.
then you could just buy our software server.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And so how much does that cost?
The software server, so that would basically be based on how many users you expect. So
Okay.
you expect to have like 5 users or 50 users or 500 users.
Okay.
So there's a tiered pricing strategy for the server.
Okay,
It's a
but-
one-time perpetual license cost.
Oh, okay.
So once you get that, then for like 25 users, you're all set.
Okay. Well, let's just like again the hypothetical. Let's say 5 users. How much would it cost to perpetually license the software for the? Yeah.
So for 5 users for a video ingest workflow, something like this, it might be upwards of 10K plus
Okay.
to set up something like this.
Okay.
But it will also depend on the modules that we are enabling, what sort of transcoding profiles we are setting up, and things like that.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. And it sounds accessible. Like it all sounds kind of crazy or kind of scary when we like talk about like how much the cloud storage stuff costs, even though everyone's like, how come your stuff is not in the cloud or whatever?
Yeah.
But I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
for video production, it's a challenge.
Is
the
it?
cloud. I mean,
Yeah.
Everybody talks about everything going into cloud,
Yeah.
but if you think about it, an HR application, right? How
Yeah.
much data would it generate? It might be lucky to generate like a couple of gigabytes of records
Yes.
a year.
Yeah.
Versus a camera card
Yeah.
would have a terabyte pretty easily in one episode.
Yeah. Absolutely.